trustworthy, etc. So, from the start we can tell that there's a issue with the conditions. We notice that the Sunnis have imposed upon themselves harsher conditions than the Shias. And, from the start that implies something about the care that the Sunni scholars have put forth upon themselves, upon the Hadiths, while the Shias, on the other hand, have not. I'd like to start off with a short story which is linked to this topic of the quantity of information that our scholars have, put into the books that they have formed when it comes to ilm al-rijaal, the science of the narrators of Hadith. Of course, if any one of you goes to a Sunni bookstore and you find a copy of al-Jaf bin Abi Hatim or al-Tarikh al-Kabir by Imam al-Bukhari, you will notice that it's just an insane amount of effort put into these scholars into listing the narrators of Hadith, and just the amount of information, the excessive amount of information that has been included, information like when they were born, when they died, the narrator's full name, where they were from, where did they go to, the names of their sheikhs, the names of their students, of course, statements of scholars praising them, statements of scholars denouncing them, condemning them. All this information that has been included by scholars implies that this has really been taken care of from the very start, from as early as the 2nd century. We find tons of statements, and of course it was early in the 3rd century when these were collected into the form of large compilations of books on narrators. So yeah, back to the quick story. A while ago I was in a Shia bookstore with a friend of mine, and it was a few months before that I first started hearing and learning about Shia rijaal. I've just been introduced to the 4/5, depends on your view as a Shi'i. The four main books of Shia rijaal. So basically, when I started, so I noticed that one of the books in the bookshop was actually there, which is Rijaal al-Tusi. And I noticed the book, and I immediately said, wow, this is Rijaal al-Tusi finally. And it was packaged with this plastic wrapping, and it was huge. It was about 10 volumes long, which is about the size of, al-Jarh al-Ta'dil by Ibn Abi Hatim, and so I was really surprised. I was like, wow, the Shias actually put some effort into this. So me and my friend, we picked up the 10-volume compilation, and we placed it on the table, onto the counter. So I went back to, check out some of the other books, and my friend comes up to me, and he says, Farid, ya akhi, it's just 1 volume, it's not 10 volumes. So I said, no, I saw it, it's 10 volumes long. And he said, no, it's just 1 volume, but it's a copy, so there are 10 copies of the same volume. So wow, okay, I thought there was more of an effort put into Rijaal al-Tusi. So I was somewhat relieved, and I thought in some sense that Shias really took this matter seriously, which was somewhat of a surprise to me. So finally I opened the book. I opened Rijaal al-Tusi, and to my surprise, the book contains something like, it contains 6,500 narrators. And, 6,500 narrators is quite a large number of narrators. It's not as high as the amount of narrators in the Tarikh al-Kabir by Bukhari, which, hits about 14,000 narrators, or Ibn Abi Hatim, which hits about 18,000 narrators. That's like 9 volumes long. But anyways, Rijaal al-Tusi is 1 volume long, 6,500 narrators, and when I flipped through the pages, I saw the names of the narrators, just their names, without any information about them other than their names. So no statements about their strengthening or weakening or when they were born, or when they died, or who their sheikhs were, or who their students were, or which countries, areas they visited, etc. There was none of that. I use this metaphor a lot when describing rijaal al-Tusi. To me, it looks like a telephone book, but without the numbers. It's just the names of the narrators listed. So, subhanallah, of course, to be fair, there are some, you can find some information. Every, let's say, 100 narrators, you'd find al-Tusi saying that so-and-so is trustworthy. That's very, very rare. I mean, to include, this little information in such a, large book when it comes to the amount of narrators is really a shame. Especially for, if I was a Shi'i, I'd be somewhat, annoyed when comparing the amount of, the quantity of information that Sunnis included and Shias didn't. Similarly, there are some other, similarly, there are some other Shia books that include a smaller amount of narrators, like Rijaal al-Najashi, which is about around 1,300 narrators, but the amount of information in that book is somewhat higher. You can find a lot more strengthenings and weakenings of narrators. Of course, it doesn't compare to the efforts of Sunni scholars in any way, shape, or form. And it's due to this that, the lack of information by early scholars, that we find really late scholars, contemporaries, not being able to fill up their large compilations with information. Take for example al-Mufid fi Mu'jam rijaal al-Hadith by al-Jawahiri, who summarized Mu'jam rijaal al-Hadith by al-Khu'i. So Mu'jam rijaal al-Hadith is about 21 volumes long, but most of the information revolves around the specific chains in which narrators narrated in. So not really beneficial information. That's the only way I guess you could fill up 21 volumes when you have really little information about narrators. If some Sunni scholar tried to compile everything that was ever written in the similar fashion that al-Khu'i did, it would definitely be, 150 volumes long or something. But anyways, back to the point. Al-Mufid fi Mu'jam rijaal al-Hadith by al-Jawahiri is an abridgment of what al-Khu'i included in his book. And he pointed out, if you just flip through the pages, you notice that not even every other narrator, much more than that, maybe 80% or 90% of the narrators are anonymous, according to al-Jawahiri, technically according to al-Khu'i, which is one of the highest, most important Shia rijaal scholars of contemporary times. So it's really a shame that the effort was not there from the Shia scholars. Honestly, if you go through al-Mufid from Mu'jam rijaal al-Hadith, you just flip the pages, and almost every single person there is majhul, 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 anonymous, anonymous, anonymous. You feel like that there's something missing in their, rijali efforts. So that concerns the quantity of information. How about the quality of information? The quality is especially important because, in my opinion, it reassures the student of Hadith from either sect of the amount of effort that the scholars put into discerning authentic from weak. For example, one of the examples that I appreciated personally was Ibn Hibban's example in al-Majruhin, where he mentioned in the biography of Abdul Salam bin Salih Abu Salt al-Harawi, in which he said Abdul Salam bin Salih narrated from Hamad bin Zayd and the people of Iraq strange hadiths in praise of Ali and his Ahlul Bayt. One cannot accept his hadith if he narrates them alone. So so he starts off, Ibn Hibban, he starts off by mentioning the name of the narrator, and he mentions that he narrated from the people of Iraq, strange hadiths in praise of Ali. Right there, even at that point, we notice a difference in quality between Shi'i and Sunni efforts when it comes to criticizing narrators. But that's not even it. Ibn Hibban goes to Ibn bin Salih, narrated from Abu Muawiyah, from al-A'mash, from Mujahid, from Ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ said, أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها فمن أراد المدينة فليأتها من قبل الباب. I'm sure this is a hadith that most of you have heard. I am the city of knowledge, and Ali is its door, and whosoever wanted to enter the city should come through the door. So Ibn Hibban said, after mentioning the hadith, this hadith is nothing. It is not from the hadith of Ibn Abbas, nor from the hadith of Mujahid, nor from the hadith of al-A'mash, nor from the hadith of Abu Muawiyah. And whoever narrated this same narration stole from Abil Salt and changed the chain. So if we focus on this statement, it really implies a lot. Because Ibn Hibban isn't just criticizing the narrator for no specific reason. Ibn Hibban noticed that Ibn Abbas has never narrated such a hadith, even though Ibn Abbas has hundreds of students. And the same case with Mujahid, and the same case with al-A'mash, and the same case with Abu Muawiyah. So who is Abu Salt al-Harawi to come 100 and something years later and being a weak narrator and to have narrated this hadith? How did he come upon this hadith when hundreds and thousands of other students have not? So this is one of the criticisms that the scholars had against Abu Salt al-Harawi. And notice that Ibn Hibban says, and whoever narrated the same narration stole it from Abil Salt and changed the chain. This is very beneficial when realizing that the liars and the fabricators of hadith back at the time, when they found the hadith that they liked, what they used to do is they used to steal it. They would narrate it and fabricate their own chain. Sometimes they would relate it to Abu Muawiyah or relate it to Mujahid through and onto Ibn Abbas, etc. But in most cases, they will fabricate new chains. This is why you will sometimes see Shi'is, coming up with long lists. Oh, check it out, this is the long list of Ana Madinatul Ilm wa Ali Babaha. And they would come up with 40 chains or something, for example. And you will notice that a lot of these chains have the same narrator, Abdul Salam bin Salih al-Harawi. And a lot of these chains, or actually all of them, would have either a liar or an anonymous narrator. So subhanallah, the effort put into the quality put into breaking down this hadith by Ibn Hibban, and the quality of all the major hadith scholars really implies that they really cared about ulum al-hadith, and they really cared about ulum al-rijaal. And this is something that anyone that goes through these books will realize, especially Kitab al-Kamil fi al-Du'afa by Ibn Adi, and al-Majruhin by Ibn Hibban, and Kitab al-Du'afa by al-Aqili, and Mizan al-I'tidal by al-Dhahabi, and even the Sun al-Mizan by Ibn Hajar. You will find tons of examples, hundreds, if not thousands of examples of specific narrators being weakened, and the scholar would mention 1, 2, sometimes 3 hadiths that these narrators have fabricated by themselves, and they will sometimes even state this narrator stole this hadith from this narrator. It's very detailed, and unfortunately for Shias, we do not find this form of this amount of quality when it comes to breaking down narrators. I believe the only example I've seen was in Rijaal ibn al-Ghaba'ari, when Ibn al-Ghaba'ari says that this specific narrator, I forgot his name, I think it was al-Abbas bin Hubaysh or something, al-Abbas bin Hassan. He used to narrate hadiths about Laylatul Qadr that don't exist. I think that's like the only case I've seen in which a Shia Hadith scholar would get very specific. So there's no comparison when we see what the Sunni scholars have done and compare that to Shia scholars when it comes to the quality of Hadith, the quality of breaking down rijaal narrators. On to the next topic, which is, in my opinion, also a really important topic. Because, as I said earlier, there are two main, the main definition according to Shi'is is that the narrator needs to be trustworthy. While some Shi'i scholars say that the chains also have to be connected. So they've added another condition. Of course, this was a Sunni condition, prior to it being a Shi'i condition. So, but either way, in my opinion, you cannot, apply this condition upon Shia Hadiths, that the Shia Hadiths have to be connected. From what I've seen personally from my studies, I've noticed that you can only apply this, the condition of having Hadiths connected to Sunni Hadiths, but not to Shia Hadiths. And the reasons are as follows. The first reason is that the scholars of Ahl Sunnah really put an effort into mentioning whom of the Tabi'een heard whom from the Sahaba, and sometimes vice versa, and sometimes they even mention which of the Tabi'een didn't hear from the particular Sahabi. For example, Al-Harith bin Yazid, Yahya bin Ma'in said Al-Harith bin Yazid didn't hear from Abi Dhar anything. This implies, this specific statement has a lot of weight, because whenever you see a hadith with Al-Harith bin Yazid narrating from Abi Dhar, you know that there's a narrator, there's a middleman, there's an intermediary that's missing between Al-Harith bin Yazid and Abi Dhar. Similarly, Al-Daraqutni said Ja'far al-Sadiq didn't meet any of the Sahaba. And this specific statement is beneficial as well, because if you ever find a hadith in which we find Ja'far al-Sadiq narrating from Ali, or narrating from Al-Hasan or Al-Hussein, we know that Ja'far al-Sadiq didn't meet any of these men, so he must have heard it from someone else. Of course, we don't know who he heard it from. He may have heard it from his father, he may have heard it from a weak narrator. These are all possibilities, which is why these hadiths are weak to us. If the narrator mentions, if the narrator skips the intermediary, if the narrator skips the middleman, that is an issue for us. Of course, the scholars of Ahl Sunnah have included thousands of examples. For those that want to take a deeper look, I suggest Al-Marasil by Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, Jam' al-Tahsil by Al-Ala'i, and Tuhfat al-Tahsil by Abu Zur'a al-Iraqi. And these scholars, you just open any of these pages, you will find tons of examples, thousands of examples of this narrator didn't hear this narrator. This narrator heard this narrator. Al-Hasan al-Basri never heard from Abu Bakr al-Siddiq. Al-Hasan al-Basri never heard from Umar ibn Khattab. But he did see Uthman bin Affan, and he did see Ali when he was young. But he never narrated from any of them because he was too young at the time. So these specific statements are very, very beneficial to us. Unfortunately, from the Shi'i side, this is too rare. I mean, personally, the only examples I have seen of this are, let me read them out to you. Al-Najashi mentions 4 people that have narrated the Mursal Hadiths. الحسن بن محمد بن جمهور, أحمد بن محمد البرقي, أحمد بن محمد بن سيار السياري, Muhammad bin Ahmed bin Yahya bin Imran. And Ibn al-Ghadari mentions Muhammad bin Ali bin Ibrahim, Muhammad bin Khalid al-Baqi, and Sahib bin Ziyad. Now, in total, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 narrators that have been known to narrate Mursal Hadiths. And notice that none of these scholars were specific. Al-Najashi wasn't specific. Ibn al-Ghadari wasn't specific in mentioning which narrators didn't they hear from. So this is another issue. I mean, why did Shi'i scholars not include this information? Is it because the narrators never narrated disconnected chains? Well, maybe a Shi'i will argue that, but it's really hard to believe. It's very hard to assume that they were special like that, because we find tons of Sunni examples of this happening. And similarly, if we look into Shia Hadiths, I mean, personally, I've found a lot of Hadiths that have been narrated through disconnected chains, and I can tell because I find 2 specific chains with the same narrators, once with the intermediary, once with the middleman, and once without the middleman. So this implies that the Hadith was once narrated in connected form and was once narrated in disconnected form, etc. This implies that Shi'i narrators did narrate disconnected Hadiths. And unfortunately, we don't really have enough information by their scholars to weaken Hadiths due to them being mursal. It was only in really late times, by the time, I believe, Wallahu A'lam, it was al-Majlisi who first started doing this, weakening Hadiths by stating that they're mursal. And there weren't really many cases of this. The cases were few. I mean, you can't really compare this to the efforts of Ahl Sunnah. Another issue about the disconnection of Hadiths, in which the scholars of Ahl Sunnah really paid attention to, was the documenting of dates. We have very specific examples of Sunni Hadith scholars documenting dates, and this is really beneficial for us because we get to know if a certain narrator met his shaykh or not. One of the examples of this, a famous example, is Farid bin Ma'dan met a narrator called Umar bin Musa al-Wajihi, who was technically accepted as a weak narrator or a rejected narrator. And Umar bin Musa al-Wajihi used to narrate the hadiths of Farid bin Ma'dan. So Farid bin Ma'dan asked Umar bin Musa, where did you hear your shaykh? And when? Where did you hear him? So Umar bin Musa said, I heard my shaykh on 108 after Hijrah, in the year 108 after Hijrah, during the conquest of Armenia. So Farid accused Umar bin Musa of lying. He said Khalid died in 104, in the year 104 after Hijrah, and never fought in Armenia. He fought in Rome. So this implies, this itself, this specific example, implies that the Sunni scholars used to test narrators and to see if they narrated from their sheikhs or not. Similarly, we find, alhamdulillah, this was never really an issue, determining when specific narrators died, because the early scholars really put a lot of effort into this. For example, there's a book called Tarikh Mawlid al-Ulama wa Wafiyatihim, which technically translates into the history of the births and deaths of the scholars by Ibn Zabr al-Rab'i. And the book is 2 volumes long. And what Ibn Zabr does is he quotes, various hadith scholars, quite a few, and quotes the specific years in which narrators died, and he would, in a lot of those times, mention the differences of opinions. Did Abu Hurairah die in 59 after Hijrah or 60 after Hijrah, etc. And he would quote the opinions of scholars. The book just basically lists out these names of the names of the narrators and when they died. Very, very special book. And the scholars of Ahl Sunnah didn't stop there. Al-Kattani wrote an addition to this book, which he called ذيل تاريخ مولد العلماء ووفياتهم. And then after him, al-Akfani wrote ذيل تاريخ مولد العلماء ووفياتهم. You know, an addition of an addition to the original book by Ibn Zabah. And subhanallah, يعني, if we look into the efforts of Shia scholars when it comes to documenting the dates of when narrators died, I mean, يعني, they really did a terrible job at this. Honestly, I've actually compiled a list of the narrators that died in rijaal al-Tusi, and wow, there were like, I mean, not only in rijaal al-Tusi, I went through the main, three of the main four books, and I've noticed that al-Tusi mainly quotes from Sunni sources. I mean, most of his opinions of when narrators died come from Ibn Sa'ad, the author of al-Tabaqat al-Kubra, and Ibn Hibban. And يعني, and sometimes, to be fair, al-Tusi, you know, I think once or twice mentions that he got those dates from Sunni scholars like Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and Yahya bin Ma'in. So, but you know, the 99% of the time he would not mention who he got his dates from. But anyways, and of course I can tell that he got those dates because if you compare the text that he uses, it's the exact same text and wording that you find in Tabaqat al-Kubra by Ibn Sa'ad and the same text that you find in the books of Ibn Hibban. So it's clear that he took those dates. And let's not even stop there. The dates that al-Tusi includes are mainly the dates of the really early narrators and the really late narrators that were around at his time, and narrators from the Sahaba and from the early Tabi'een. But unfortunately, the most important time, in my opinion, from around 200 to the year 300, the amount of dates that al-Tusi includes are very, very few. I think around like 8, 9, 10 dates of when specific narrators died. And that's really an issue because I can't really tell. And even the Shia scholars today, I'm sure they have a major issue, you know, trying to determine if these hadiths are connected or not. But unfortunately, what Shias do, due to the lack of information, they just accept all the hadiths as connected, you know, due to the lack of information. So the lack of information, they believe is a good thing. I mean, if they had more information, they would, wallahu a'lam, they might even reject it. Like Ibn al-Khabari weakens narrators a lot. And his book was called by some scholars al-Du'afa by Ibn al-Khabari because because it mainly focuses on the weak narrators. So I've noticed a trend of some Shia scholars rejecting books that would go against their favor and claiming that these books are not authentically attributed to their authors. Anyways, yeah, so honestly, they took, you know, an issue, something that was really negative in Shia Hadith, and they've turned it into something positive because they believe that the lack of information is a good thing. But honestly, for me, when I first went through Sharh al-Tirmidhi by Ibn Rajab, and I noticed that Ibn Rajab, you know, weakens a lot of hadiths and places a lot of conditions to weaken hadiths. But at the end of his book, he says, even though these conditions might seem really harsh, at the end, when one comes out with, when Hadith comes out through all those Hadith scholars and through all those filters and comes out as authentic, you're not only 95% sure it's authentic, you're 100% sure, because it went through all those screens, through all those filters to be proven as authentic. While from the Shia Hadith perspective, it seems more like an issue of, if we don't know, can't really hurt us, yallah, we accept it as authentic. That's one of the issues, the documenting of dates. The last issue that has to do with the connection of hadiths is the issue of tadlis. Tadlis is, of course, narrating a hadith from your sheikh that you didn't hear personally. So, for example, Al-A'mash would be in a majlis and he wouldn't hear his sheikh directly. So he would now, while revising with one of his with one of the fellow students, he would ask him, hey, what did I miss today? And the other student would say what the sheikh narrated. So Al-A'mash, instead of saying that the student told me, the middleman told me, that the sheikh told me, Al-A'mash would just say, the sheikh said, and that's it. He wouldn't say the sheikh told me, because if he said the sheikh told me, then he'd be a liar. And Tab'an Al-A'mash was a trustworthy narrator, and he wouldn't do something like that. But what he would say is, the sheikh said, without specifically saying if he heard it or not. So what Sunni scholars did from the very beginning, this is really early in the timeline of hadith sciences, is that we had major scholars like Shu'bah bin Hajjaj, who was referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen fil Hadith. He would sit down next to Al-A'mash and he would test him. He would say, did you hear this hadith? And Al-A'mash would say, okay, fine. And he would narrate the hadith through the actual full chain. And this specific example, illustrates that there were many other examples of this. And Ibn Hajar himself has collected a book called Ta'rif Ahl al-Taqdis بمراتب الموصوفين بالتدليس, in which he includes 100 and something narrators that were famous and that have practiced this practice of referring hadiths to their sheikhs instead of stating that they heard them from someone else and then heard them from their sheikh. And alhamdulillah, we find that the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, when they find a hadith with a mudallis, a person who would practice the tadlis, they would not accept their hadith unless that specific mudallis would say, I heard my sheikh, or I heard the student say. If he uses the word I heard, then the Sunni scholar would accept the hadith. Unfortunately, the Shi'is have not collected and the statements of scholars on tadlis, or wallahu alam, have even accused any students of tadlis. I have been looking through Shia books for such an example, but I haven't found any. And notice that in a lot of Shia books that deal with sciences of hadith by late scholars, they would usually include a chapter that they would call the meaning, the terminology of tadlis, and they would quote examples of tadlis. And subhanAllah, they'd always be quoting Sunni sources, which implies that there are no Shi'i examples of this. I mean, it's like the Shi'i scholars accepted this fact. They accepted that specific narrators would do this, or that a lot of narrators would do this, but they've never accused any of their narrators of doing this. And this isn't because the Shi'i narrators were perfect. I mean, Shi'is themselves accuse a lot of their narrators of lying, and a lot of them of being weak. But we don't find any specific examples of a narrator being a mudallis, or a narrator performing a form of tadlis. So, Once again, alhamdulillah, this reassures me. This reassures me and should reassure every Sunni that the scholars of Ahl Sunnah really, really protected the science of Hadith, and really protected the science of rijaal. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And whatever I said that is correct, then it is from Allah, and whatever that I have said that is not, then it is from me or from the shaitan, and Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.